Hello, hello, hello. I'm here. I'm back. Um, got a bit of a shorter thing planned today. Um, I'm I I've been invited to a soiree, and we're making something to bring along. Um, also, uh, this is the last day of reasonably nice weather, so I actually expect hardly anyone's going to show up. We've had a blistering heat wave since I last saw you on Tuesday. The kind of heat wave where you just kind of sit and melt. And we're having cool weather come back, so I didn't want to hook up my air conditioner because it would require opening a window and breaking that winter seal that I put on it. And we're supposed to have some snow tomorrow. So I didn't want to hook that up, so I just kind of suffered through it. But we're out of it. It's in the 60s now. Felix, you're first. Hello. No one can ever take that away from you. Welcome in. Um, get some water ready before anyone asks. So yeah, the weather is turning back towards not winter, but typical Wisconsin spring. So cool, bits of snow, bits of rain. I'm glad to see the heat wave leave. It was killing me slowly. But yeah, snow to 90s to snow. Exactly. Um, uh, but yeah, I think we ultimately picked a good day for this soiree. I wouldn't have liked it a couple days ago when it was 90 degrees. Tomorrow it's supposed to snow. Today they've got rain forecast, but I've been watching it and they've been downgrading the chance of rain for a while. So fingers crossed we don't get anything. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'll probably whip up something for myself while it's baking. We can do one of those little short dishes that I never think I have time, that would never take enough time to do a full show on. Um, Cornbread itself doesn't take very long, so this is also going to be a little bit, the whole thing's going to be a little bit shorter, which is fine because I want to, like I said, we're 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 baking as a presentation, so it's actually got to get there and be presented. Um, so no promises on time, probably short, probably won't. Very unlikely we'll make it to noon today. If you're out of my time zone, I start at 10 my time, and then I go to noon, however long it takes. Sometimes that one week it took 4 hours. So, um, but cornbread doesn't take very long. We can talk about cornbread. Cornbread is one of those things that has. I love cornbread, but I don't know that I know what kind of cornbread I love. It's got a lot of regional variations. I am following a recipe for this one from Serious Eats because I want to make sure I get it right. And then I'm making some honey butter, which I love cornbread with honey butter. I guess I love Louisiana cornbread with honey butter, but I'm not necessarily following a Louisiana recipe here. Um, so let's find out. Let's see what happens. Step one is not even a cooking step, and I'm not even going to switch to anything for this. We're going to get out. Step one is get out your big cast iron. Specifically calls for a 10-inch cast iron. I think this is a 10-inch cast iron. Yeah. So you get out your big cast iron, put said thing remove the small cast iron from the oven that you were curing, that you were seasoning earlier. Put your big cast iron in the oven. And then turn the oven on to 425. So your cast iron will preheat with the oven to quite hot, quite hot. My understanding and the way it describes it here is that the purpose of this is to get that golden brown crust on the cornbread, because you'll be putting the batter, and it's a batter more than a dough. Cornbread is more like a cake, honestly, than a bread when you break it down. But since you'll be pouring the batter into the hot pan, which we will grease in a bit. It'll quickly develop a crust. So that's the purpose of that. Let's pop over to the countertop. Ooh. Slightly dusty countertop. I haven't done a lot of cooking since you saw me last on account of the heat. I didn't want to turn my, although I did cure or season a cast iron, so so I did have the oven on for that, but I didn't want to be in here with the oven or the stove on because of the heat it was giving off. So I kind of ate. I didn't take out. I still ate home food, but it was a lot of cold bits and that leftover the extra baguettes from our banh mi. I lost my train of thought. Let's get out all of our ingredients and get our mise place. Not that that's, once again, this isn't a very wildly complex thing. We need quite a bit of butter, but mostly for the honey butter. So I've got an entire stick of Flavor Protect Wrapper butter. I also picked up a brand new honey in a bear bottle. We need cornmeal, flour, sugar, baking powder, baking soda, salt, sour cream, buttermilk, eggs, butter, and a neutral oil. I've also got 4 tablespoons of butter here, because we're going to need 4 tablespoons of butter in 2 different places. So there's a lot of butter going into this. Caution, butter. For a long time, I was laboring under the misapprehension that cornbread was just bread made out of corn. Having made it with modest success once before, which is why I'm following a recipe. I'm not confident I'll be able to do this without, and I'm trying to give the service to people, so it's got to be good enough to present. Having made it now, and having reviewed this recipe as well, it is really more of a cake than a bread. Although it's not as sweet, and because of the corn, it's also quite a bit denser. It's also not served as a dessert item, really, even though it is still fairly sweet. One advantage of the warm weather is that our butter is noticeably softer. Oop, I've got a little bit of paper left on it. So if you like spreading your butter from the stick, this is the weather for it. A couple days ago, it was the weather for it just being a puddle. This half stick didn't need to be softened. Not really. Let's microwave that. We're going to need that melted, so I'm going to get that going now. That half stick did not really need to be melted or softened because we are going to be fully melting it. I need to remember not to be licking my fingers a whole bunch. I do it when I'm cooking for myself. Because, of course, I'm just cooking for myself, and I don't care. But when I'm cooking for others, I need to remember not to. I need to always remind myself not to. And that butter also doesn't. This one really needed to be softened because we are going to be whipping it with the honey to make whipped honey butter, which I love. One more time on that butter. Softened butter does microwave more easily than cold butter because you don't end up with that melted pocket in a hard butter that results in explosions. This is going to be big. There's going to be 2 cups of... There's no water in this. There's just buttermilk and eggs as the liquid components. Interesting. Let's get out some eggs. Plus our Mises. It says large eggs. Mine are ungraded eggs, but I'll pick those 2. It's a pretty basic thing, honestly. We're going to get out our little ingredient bowls here. But for the most part, we're getting out all our ingredients, combining them into a batter, and then putting that batter into a hot oven, and it makes the thing. It's much, much easier than the recent breads I've been making in the French style that have multiple kneading and rising steps, an overnight starter. This is a much more American recipe, not just from the corn, but from the how much less fussy it is. I'm sorry, French people, but your cooking is very fussy. We need 1/2 teaspoon baking soda. Cornbread is a quick bread, and I think the sweetness, honestly, I think the sweetness in it is in large part because as a quick bread, it naturally kind of has that alkaline flavor. So you'd be inclined to add something to it, like sugar, to 2 full teaspoons baking powder. So the soiree, the event I'm bringing this to, is a frontier themed maple cooking party thing, on account of running maple sap, I guess. I'm actually going to find out where they got all the maple sap, because in my mind, it's too early for maple sap to be running locally. So I thought cornbread, like a classic cornbread, was a good on-theme thing. We might throw together beef fizz, which is a recipe that somebody found in a very old book and posted online, and occasionally goes the rounds now as something that shouldn't be, but you gotta try it. You gotta try it. You won't know if you just assume it's bad. You won't know. It might be good. Liquids. So we're getting these out. I'm getting especially the baking soda and baking powder out because of that one snafu we had with the pancakes, where I forgot to put the raising agents in it, and it was the flattest thing in the world. I did. So there was a list of all the things that. This is just salt, which I'm going to add to the baking soda bowl. Of all the things that were traditional at such an event in the past, Zaizan, welcome in. Thank you for the moisten. Moist. Yes, we are indeed making corned bread. Strap in. It's going to take 10 days of brining after we make the bread. I've got the starter loaf here. We're going to brine this for 10 days and then boil it. And that's how you make corned bread. No, wait. I'm thinking of a different corned thing. Butt milk. We need half a cup of butt milk. I'm going to throw all my wet ingredients together in their own bowl. Before I commit to that. Also, welcome in, Shining Spear. Great to see you. Butt milk. Yeah, you know. Butt milk. Half a cup of butt milk. The interesting thing for this recipe that I wasn't expecting is 3/4 cup sour cream. Not a sponsor brand sour cream today. Don't mind that you can almost see the label. This is hard to measure in this container. This right here is why I'm cognizant of not licking my fingers. I just had to use my finger to get to level the sour cream. Ugh. We might not do this with the cup measure. Whoa, this is not the easiest thing to measure out. Okay, tell you what. It's 4 tablespoons to a quarter cup. So I'm going to get out the big tablespoon measure because it's easier to get the stuff back out of. And we're going to put in, instead of those full quarter cups, rinse my finger off real quick, 8 tablespoons. 8 more tablespoons for easy measure. Or, you know, we could also approximate. Like that. Three. Our oven has clicked and is ready to go. 4. 5. Getting better at scooping up the right amount out of the with the spatula before I even get it in there. 6. 7. And 8. Scrape off a little bit of extra because I probably mismeasured that at some point, either by an air pocket or a underfilled thing or whatever. Close enough. As my father would say, close enough for government work. I honestly doubt cornbread is such a fussy recipe to begin with that I would need to measure it out like that. But I'm doing my diligence. Throw the eggs in there as well while I'm thinking about putting all my wet, moist ingredients. Got to free moisten this then. Into the same dish. I'm super glad about the price of eggs, I must say. I was insulated against the worst of the egg spike by getting my eggs mostly from a local producer. But egg prices are also significantly down. That smells great. That smells great already, and it's just sour cream, buttermilk, and eggs. So you don't want to add your powder, your baking dry powders, to your liquid until you add everything else. Because as soon as it gets in the liquid, it will start the reaction. The reaction is not incredibly fast. It's fairly forgiving. The idea is that the heat of the oven will stimulate the reaction and give you all that rise that you're looking for. So that's our liquids. Is that going to be big enough? For safety's sake, I'm going to move to the larger bowl, just so that when I stir it, I don't end up spilling everything. We didn't use those because I was going to measure out my liquid ingredients there, but then I didn't do that. Medium bowl, whisk together cornmeal, flour, sugar, baking powder, salt, baking soda. In a separate bowl, whisk together sour cream, buttermilk, eggs, butter, and 2 tablespoons of neutral oil. Okay, I can do that. It calls for canola. I don't use canola. We're not using canola. Canola can go away. Please. I'm going to add the canola to my Okay, I understand the logic here. The recipe doesn't explain the logic, but I get the logic here. The butter is for flavor and is traditional, but having an oil, a liquid oil, in a baked good, when that baked good gets to room temperature, the liquid oil will... Where did I put my tiny whisk? Tiny whisk. No, brush it away. Tiny whisk. The liquid oil will resist solidify. Will resist the tendency of the butter to solidify, and at room temperature, your baked good will be that much more moist. Now this is always a little bit awkward, adding melted butter to cold liquid. So hopefully everything should probably have been brought to room temperature. I think the addition of the oil has helped us there as well in preventing the butter from immediately... Oh crap, that rolled. That rolled. Oh, I got butter on my butt. Not really, not literally. Don't take that literally. It's a euphemism. But I think I lost probably as much as I gained by doing it that way. Okay, well. Oh well. Oh well. Dry ingredients go in here. We're going to go get our flour tower, the tower of flour. That's another misconception I had initially about cornbread. I thought it was just corn. But no, every cornbread that I've ever looked at the recipe for has at least some quantity of another flour in it. Most typically, standard wheat flour. And when I think about it, it makes sense. Corn is not have gluten in it. It is not a glutinous grain. You can make things out of just corn, but it won't ever be able to capture the air bubbles. It won't have that structure to capture air pockets to give you a foamy interior. You would have to combine it with something to give it that structure. I bet you could do it with just corn and eggs. I bet you there's a way to pull that off. Corn. But like the pure corn bread, quote unquote bread, you know, it's bread, that we're most familiar with is tortillas, which are obviously entirely unrisen. They're super flat. So we want equal parts regular old flour and cornmeal. Do not confuse cornmeal with corn flour. You will be in for a very, very sad time. This is, of course, an American recipe, so not only is it measured in cups, I'm gonna add a pinch more, but it's not measured, not only is it in imperial units, but it's not measured by weight, it's measured in cups. When measuring standard flour in a volume measure, be very, very gentle with it, because you can compact it and get a way more flour by pressing into the cup while you're putting it in there. And half a cup of sugar, which we used our half cup just a minute ago, which means it's all wet, which means I have to use the Fortunately, my measuring cups are all double marked. So the half cup is just halfway up the cup here. Okay. Cornmeal flour, sugar, baking powder, kosher salt, baking soda. All the dry ingredients. This is often how baking works. You have all your dry ingredients in one bowl, all your wet ingredients in another bowl, and then you combine them. And the direction in which you combine them usually matters as well. So, in this case, we pour the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients for this recipe. I'm going to get out another whisk, different whisk, to get this all combined up before I add anything to it. It'll help us get rid of lumps. It'll make sure that the active agents in the baking powder and baking soda are, like that one right there, evenly distributed and not lumpy. You don't really want to bite into a lump of baking soda. I'm actually going to go through with my fingers. And pinch out any lumps I can find. You don't want a lump of baking soda or baking powder because A, it won't react properly. You'll end up with like a pocket. Now they'll have a chance to dissolve, but no sense in running any risks. But also, The baking agents are alkaline, which isn't a nice flavor if you get a big bite of it. Okay, all the lumps I can feel out of there. Ooh, speak for yourself. I mean, no one's stopping you. You can have a big spoonful of baking powder if you want. Pour wet ingredients into dry ingredients. Whisk until completely combined. No indication that this will be over whisked. I suspect. Don't mix it too vigorously. This does have wheat flour and egg in it, both of which can be overworked, and if you do so, they will become tough and chewy. Which cornbread is not meant to be. Like I said before, cornbread is more of a cake. It's like a dense corn-themed cake. Evidenced in no small part by the way that we're making a batter instead of a dough. Boy, the buttermilk really jumps out. It smells really good. Maybe I just really like buttermilk. Yeah, it's a cake bread. I'm starting to think I might just really like buttermilk. Because it smells really good to me, but I think the only thing I'm smelling is buttermilk. Okay. So, unlike a yeasted dough, this one does not need resting. In fact, it is harmed by resting. Because the reaction between the acidity of the buttermilk and the alkaline of the baking soda, as well as the acid and alkaline in the baking powder. That is what baking powder is, if you're not aware. It is a combination of an acid and an alkaline, so that when it's mixed into a liquid ingredient like this, they combine and start reacting and produce gas. Vaporous gas. Okay, here's the fun part. We're going to come over to the stove. We're going to grab our pot holders. Step. Using pot holders. I'm sure that somebody did this without pot holders and just you're like, well, we can't have that. Using pot holders, take this 400-degree piece of iron out of your oven. Place 1 tablespoon of butter in and swirl to coat the bottom. need both pot holders for this. Ooh, even with pot holders, a cast iron pan has enough thermal mass to really get your hands hot. Pour the cornbread into it and bake until a toothpick comes out clean. Mmm, cornbread. Scrape off my finger, rinse off my finger so I don't have to wash those pot holders quite so much. Give this guy a little jiggle just to even him out. You can see we got browned butter and it's already kind of solidifying around the edges, so we got to get him in there. And then we check on him at 20 minutes. Maybe the Google timer will work today. Last time it started going off after like 6 minutes and just was continuously beeping at me, even while it was still counting down. There you go. That is a cornbread in the oven. We have a little bit of time now because 20 minutes. So, one thing, I'm going to make honey butter. Honey butter, if you've never had honey butter, what's wrong with you? Get out. It's literally exactly what it sounds like. Butter with honey. Honey butter, if you will. Honey is, of course, very, very difficult to measure in a normal measuring device on account of it being so thick and sticky. But I'm going to try because I don't have one of those fancy chef plungers. The thing, oh God, Alton Brown had this thing. It was like it looked like a turkey baster, but it didn't have a nozzle on the end. It was just open, and then it was graduated, and you'd pull the bottom down to various measurement levels, and then you would just fill it up, and then push the plunger to get the quantity into your whatever it was. It was perfect for measuring thick, sticky things like this because you didn't have to get it out of the thing. You just pushed the plunger up, and then it came right out. All you had to do was scrape it straight across the surface. I think that thing's a great idea. I don't know where to get one. Going to be a mess. But 3 tablespoons of honey to a stick of butter. A stick of butter being a 1/4 pound for people who don't understand stick measure. That's something I learned from watching people on Twitch actually cook in Europe. Their butter does not come divided into sticks. It always comes in a single block. Which seems probably much easier and cheaper to produce that way. But seems less useful for the cook at the other end. I don't think that quite makes up for the egg situation. European eggs don't need to be refrigerated unless you want to store them long term on account of they're not washed to death. I licked my finger because it was honey. So I gotta wash my hand. I licked the honey off my finger rather than washing it away, but that means I have to wash my hand. Okay. Now, how do you make those things into one thing? That's the tricky bit. Oh my God, Google Timer. What is wrong with you, Google Timer? You started beeping at 5 minutes on a 20-minute timer that I set for you. It's like you don't work anymore. Okay, Google Timer is broken. Google Timer is officially broken and we're no longer using it. Like I was saying, how do you combine those things into one thing? Now, the easy way to do it is with a powered mixer. The trouble is, I put it in this weird bowl. So instead of using a powered mixer, I'm going to get several other tools dirty. Fortunately, our butter is very soft on account of it being left out to soften. Okay, the masher is just to get it started. Don't worry, I know it's terrible. It was just to get it started. Because I don't trust butter. But this butter was very soft from the heat wave. Heat wave was good for one thing. It softened up my butter. Get off of there. Okay, well, I just washed my hands, so I'm going to do this part with my hands. Because I can't seem to get the spatula in there. Do it with your hands, and you can make your fingers whatever shape you need to scrape the mashers off. Someday I'll talk about potato mashers. This is the kind I like the most, with the little swiggle. I know there's a million varieties. But the squiggle is by far the one I like the most. Suppose I could talk about potato mashers now. But I won't. Talk about combining honey butter. So, there's no real way to overwork this. You just need the honey and the butter to be one thing. The butter is already as worked as butter. You make, if you're not familiar, you make butter by churning cream, by agitating cream until it goes past the whipped cream phase and the fat separates. It splits, which gives you buttermilk and butter. The buttermilk is the liquid part. The butter is the fats that separate out when you beat them to death. Okay, I rinsed off a whisk, but I think the whisk might be too large. So since butter is already an overbeaten dairy product, you can't really overbeat it again. You just have to knock it out of the, and this is thankfully soft enough that I can easily knock it out of the whisk. Because of course it's sticky enough that it fills up the whisk. But all you need to do is beat this until you can't see any separations anymore, until it's completely homogeneous, which I think we are at. And I'm going to scrape this down with my fingers again. I don't want to waste any of it. You know, I don't make honey butter often because it's a little bit, as you can see, it's a little bit of a hassle. I also don't typically keep a lot of honey on hand. Good thing I washed my hands. Ended up using my fingers a lot. I don't keep a lot of honey on hand because I don't use it very often, so then it crystallizes and I feel like it's a waste. And I don't purchase honey butter because the only thing I really eat honey butter on is cornbread. Even though honey butter is delicious. Since I bought that bear full of honey, I might do more experiments with honey. I've never actually had hot honey. So we could try that someday. But that right there is honey butter. And now you just have to get it into a vessel. We're gonna wash my hands before I touch everything. Honey butter, much like honey and butter, should be very stable, even at room temperature. Neither honey nor butter spoil at room temperature on account of having almost no water content. There's just no medium in them for microbes to get a foothold. I typically store my butter in the fridge because I don't use it as a spreading thing. I use it mostly for cooking, and it maintains its flavor in the fridge. Oh, hi Zan, thank you for the moisten. We also have an ad coming up. Moist. So I'm going to plunk this in this ramekin and then not bother refrigerating it. My honey I never refrigerate because it's shelf stable by default. That's the whole reason bees make it. Butter will, unless you get it something on it or in it that the some sort of microbe can get a foothold on, it will not spoil at room temperature, but it will oxidize if you leave it out, which results in the flavor going off. So if you use butter frequently, keeping it out is perfectly fine. If you use it much more rarely, then I suggest keeping it in the fridge. If you use it very rarely, then I suggest keeping it in the freezer. The way I typically do it is I've got one stick ready to use in the fridge, and then all of my remaining butter is in the freezer. And then when I finish one, I get another one out. But it's just because I don't typically use butter as a spread, like a need it fresh and soft. This stuff, I would keep at room temperature because I want to be able to spread it. I also want to make this thing a little artful, if possible. Bees do know what's up. They've been doing this longer than we have. Well, making this artful after the fact is not really working. At least I made it a little bit less abjectly hideous. I guess I'm touching it. It will melt at my body temperature, so it melts when it's on my finger. We're going to use my finger to wipe down the edge of the ramekin for appearance's sake, and also because I want to lick my finger. Tastes like honey butter. Honestly, it could use a skosh more honey, but the cornbread is going to be sweet as well, so because there's sugar in it. So probably no foul there. Wipe down that. Let me tell you, I'm looking more forward to this cleanup than I was to the cleanup from Tuesday. Cleaning the tiny little vertical razor blades on that mandolin was a nightmare. That is the number one reason I don't use the Julienne thing, is just cleaning the thing afterwards. Oof. We got it done. But yeah, not the funnest thing to clean up. How's our ad looking? We have an ad playing right now. The cornbread will be coming out shortly. Should be coming out shortly after the ad. Wow, the timing on this all actually is working out pretty well. Unless I want to make myself a quick little brunch. Do I want to make myself a quick little brunch while the cornbread cools? While the cornbread cools off. Let's get our toothpicks ready, because we're going to need one to poke the bread with. God, I love cornbread. There's a Cajun restaurant not too far from here, and they have wonderful, wonderful Cajun food, which is kind of unusual considering we're in Wisconsin. But they have wonderful Cajun food, and on their appetizers menu, they have cornbread with honey butter, and I get it every time I'm there. Yeah, I just adore it. It's very unhealthy. Theirs especially is a very, 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 very rich. I just touched my nose. Wash my hands again because I'm. I need to get better kitchen practices so I don't have to remind myself like this. At least I'm catching myself as I do it. But anyway, yeah, this cleanup is going to be so much easier than the last one. I guess I don't have time to start a thing before the bread comes out, but then it's going to have to cool. So, what do you think? What should we make for brunch? A quick brunch. Just something to nosh on. Because I didn't have any breakfast, so I'm a little bit hungry. And I don't just want to scarf down a pile of cornbread. Our timer, which we can't hear because it didn't beep. Everything's broken. Let's pop over here. I'm not gonna fuss around with it. We're gonna take it out fully. Oh, it's hot in there. Oh, it's hot and steamy in there. Holy shit. Ooh wee. Looks like cornbread. Poke it in the center, to the bottom, pull the toothpick out. Toothpick came out good. Something with protein, veggies, and or fruit. Other than that, I don't know. Well, let's move the cornbread to the back. I think it's done. I poked in the center and there's no crumbs on my poker, so oven off. Someone is revving their crazy muscle truck out there. Or, no, probably not a crazy muscle truck. It's probably one with a busted busted muffler. Okay. Olive oil, meat temperature. I'm whipping up a quickie. A quick thing. I shouldn't call it a quickie. A quick thing. The kind of thing that I cook for myself. Normally. So pan, oil, pot, small pot, water. Yeah, busted muffler people are. It's also possible that they can't afford a new muffler. But when people do the big rev, that's when I'm like, okay. Ooh, actually. Ooh, actually. Uh, need to measure. Yeah, they don't rev if they can't afford to fix it. They rev when they are showing off. This has directions on it. We don't really need the full. Sorry, I'm talking to myself because this is gonna be a surprise. I'm mushrooms. Step 1, mushrooms. Which go in at the beginning because they are very difficult to overcook. And so that they can be sure to be cooked, throw them in late, and then you're at risk of overcooking other things while you get the mushrooms cooked. Whereas if you throw the mushrooms in first, since they are virtually impossible to overcook, you can just let them hang out while you prep other stuff to throw in the pan with them. So that was what, 4 mushrooms? I got to put those in a container. So I will set them aside for now. I realized I had the version with the no side cam on. Okay, we've boiled that, to which we add this. Anybody recognize what it is? Probably not from that angle. Oop. Hard to get out because because my half cup measure was already used. Lid. Do I actually have a lid for that one? I might not have a lid for that one. We're gonna have to use an incorrectly sized lid. So when shopping for a frying pan, I've never mentioned this, I don't think. Try to get one that has this curvature, a skillet, so that you can do that little flippy thing right there. Straight-sided ones have a purpose too, but for general use, for general sautéing, I really like the curved edges there, specifically for doing little flippies. We should probably get the cornbread out of its pan and onto a rack so that it can start cooling for real. But I'm going to throw an onion in with my mushrooms first. Okay, my mushrooms have taken a little bit of my oil away, so we're going to re-oil the pan just a little bit. And an additional dash of salt to get the onions tossed a coat first, then an additional dash of salt to get the onions sweating. To get rid of these bowls of honey butter. And then we do need to get that cornbread out of its container there, because it won't cool fully because it's getting residual heat from the pan. So, and the pan is heavy. Violet! Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We're being raided by Inca Violet. Oh my god. Welcome, Raiders. Welcome. Let me give a shout out. How do you, I always forget how the... I always forget how to do that. Welcome, welcome. You've come at an exciting time. The cornbread, which is very brown on the bottom, has just come out. Oop. It looks much nicer on the top. We need it to cool before we can dig in. I'm making it for a colonial-themed soiree that I'll be attending later today. But here it is, and here's the honey butter. And then while it was cooling, I was whipping myself up a quick brunch. What were you up to today? I didn't peek in this morning. I'm sorry. Thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate it. Thank you for the follows. Once this is cool enough, I'm going to take a taster of it. I'm sorry, I can't stop. This is what I do. So for my brunch, we pop over to the stove. I have mushrooms and onions in some olive oil and some salt to get them sweating out on the go here. And check in this pot. Ooh. Couscous, which seems a little dense. It might need a little bit more water. Breath of the Wild, yes. People are playing that all over the place, getting ready for Tears of the Kingdom. I hope it was fun. I hope you had a good time. Welcome Raiders. I typically go by Jovial or Jovian, but my name is both of them. I mostly cook here on this here channel, but I've done Lego and I've done a little bit of gaming, and I keep telling myself and everyone that I'm going to do more of that, and then I kind of don't. Cooking is my main thing here. Thank you for the follow. So today's show was actually planned to be a little bit shorter, so we're not too far off on it. We got to add some flavors. You know, I've looked through some of the recipes from Breath of the Wild, and I kind of want to make them. But I feel like I should play the game instead of just looking recipes up on a wiki. So this is something I don't normally do on the stream. This is the kind of food I cook for myself when I'm not on a show because it doesn't take very long. We're going to start adding flavors to this now. Sizan's on board with Sizan's on board with playing and then cooking Breath of the Wild. But I'm just kind of tossing in some random flavors, which is usually how I cook up a fry like this. The mushrooms and onions are cooked down. I've added some black pepper, some sweet chili sauce, some sesame oil. There's already salt in there. See, the Breath of the Wild recipes that I was looking at were, many of them, the actual in-game recipes are very, very simplistic. But when you look at the image, you can put together what it's meant to be, what all the things are meant to be made of. So rather than follow the recipe where I take those 4 ingredients and try to make them into the thing, I was thinking I would look at the pictures and recreate the dish fully from unlimited ingredients based on what it looks like it's supposed to be. I guess I need a little bit of roughage in here. I do have a capture card and a Switch. I just actually don't own a copy of Breath of the Wild. That's the hitch in the plan. I haven't played it. I've watched it quite extensively, but I have not played it. Ow! Oh, sorry. Ow. Oh, damn. Oh, ow. I stood up into the freezer handle. Oh, that hurt. Oh, that hurt. Oh, that hurt. Ooh. Ooh, actually, that hurt. Let me see if I'm bleeding. I'm not. Ow. Stood up into the freezer handle. My own fault. Throwing asparagus in this. Um, um, I've played Skyrim. Now, I do have an issue with I can't really stream complex graphical games from my computer. Not because it can't handle them, but because the heat can't handle them. Like my laptop has some heat issues that mean that if I'm trying to run a game and stream it, it won't be happy. Breath of the Wild would be much easier because the Switch would be doing the game part, and all the PC would have to do is the streaming part. So that kind of that's uh, I've had a roller coaster. I couldn't get the sound. I did a test run on the Switch, and I couldn't get the sound working. So I was like, it really disheartened me. Skyrim's on Switch now. Skyrim is on Switch now. I'd have to pay for it again. We're throwing some asparagus in there because I have some asparagus. Asparagus season. It's not quite asparagus season here yet, but it's coming. And asparagus from the southern U.S. is cheap and available now. So I grabbed some, and we should use it. But other than the asparagus now needing to cook, this is basically done. And this is how I feed myself typically. Some random combination of veg, occasionally a meat, and we've gone with couscous this time, but some kind of starch, almost always cooked in this pot. This little tiny stainless pot, because it's exactly big enough for a packet of noodles. It makes one serving of whatever I put in there. We're going with just vegetables this time. Counteract the cornbread honey butter. Speaking of cornbread honey butter, that's probably cool enough to eat. It's not a terribly thick. No, it's still quite warm. We're gonna. I'm worried about the couscous. I think it might have not quite had enough water and is a little bit dense. I'm going to go the old fluff it with a fork and see what it does. Oh no, it's worked. Probably more couscous than I actually needed. I could have gone even less. Couscous is one of those things that I find hard to cook in for one, because you get down to because this is half a cup of the dry couscous with a cup of water. But if I did half a cup of water, it'd be so little that the volume would start to fluctuate just from it boiling off before I even got the stuff in there. So I guess I'll just have some extra. We should taste that. Yeah. No. Yeah. So I'm not the only culprit. We're gonna taste. Mm. Sweet, savory, salty. Need spice. Need something spicy. Heading off to a pre-release. That's right. This is pre-release weekend. I'll be heading off to a pre-release tomorrow. I don't have any scheduled today. I have other things I've got. I have so many things. My weekends are packed these days. Adding some good old Frank's Red Hot to give this a bit of a zing. That is the element it is missing. Gonna go lurk and get some chippies on. That sounds lovely. That sounds lovely. Enjoy your chippies. Thank you for the lurk. We have a lurk emote now. And thank you for the raid. If you don't catch me, I'm actually not going to be on massively much longer, because as previously mentioned, the cornbread is for an event, so I'll be tasting it here. But I want to get it there before it has a chance to fully cool down. And this is also going to be just about done. That's going to be my brunch. So we should actually be moving on to the tasting phase so that I can get us moving. Okay, so heat off there, and we'll get a bowl ready for it. Big bowl. Green bowl. Green bowl? Well, it's only green on the outside. Yeah. Oop, we have an ad rolling. So I will hold off on tasting until the ad wraps up. Oh gosh, I feel so much pressure after Violet raids because there's so many of you all of a sudden. So I do definitely have more couscous than I need, but that's fine. I will just save the other half of it here for leftovers. It will be okay. And then we will put the vegetables on top of our couscous bowl. But we still have to make it a brunch. So in the interest of brunch, how do you feel about an egg? Let's go with a smaller egg this time, though. Oop. Oop. The pan is cooled off. The pan is actually cooled off enough, I think. We could attempt a sunny side. I usually don't do a sunny side because, oop, you can hardly see it. I usually don't do a sunny side because I don't want to wait. But since the pan, and I don't like to manage the temperature that much, but since the pan cooled off, we could pull it off. We could pull it off. People are back from the ad. Welcome back, people from the ad. We are adding an egg to my brunch bowl, and then we're going to break into the cornbread and wrap up. That's the next. That's never going to go sunny side in time. Gonna go ahead and give up on that dream. Gonna go ahead and give up on that dream and just make it how I normally make it, which is over easy. I am the easiest customer at breakfast diner establishments because I order my egg over easy. The simplest preparation. Which should be just about done now. With a fully set white, nice runny yolk. This pan has just started to stick on me. The nonstick is just starting to wear off finally. Okay, let's get over here. Plunk it on the thing. Call it a brunch. Freshly cracked black pepper. So we have two separate things to taste now. For those of you sticking around for the tasting phase, let's start with the cornbread. Yeah, I don't know anyone who likes unset white. It's just kind of slimy. So I don't want to take a full wedge out of this just for a taste. But I guess I have to. We're going to take a real skinny wedge. And that is the interior of a corn. I should have taken a picture before I took the slice out. Beautiful interior. Looks very perfect. Nice. You never had cornbread. The name is a little bit misleading. It's more like a cake in the way you make it. So it's a wet batter that is poured into a hot pan, which gives us this brown edge and brown crust. It's usually a bit sweet. We're gonna. It's definitely firmer than your typical cake, but it's made like a cake, and it's often very buttery. And this, I believe, is the northern style. Northern and southern cornbreads are noticeably different. I'm in the north. It is made with corn. Is made with regular flour and cornmeal. Corn flour is this super powdery stuff that you use to thicken sauces. Cornmeal is like whole ground corn. But yes, it's made with corn and regular flour. Regular flour gives it a little bit of structure. I'm a big fan of cornbread, and it's actually not that hard to make. You could go back and watch the VOD of today for how I made it. It didn't take hardly any time at all. And the ingredients are pretty abundant. Actually, I don't know. Corn might not be abundant. I am serving mine with honey butter, which is my favorite topping for it. So let's tuck in and let you know how I did. Cornbread with honey butter is one of my favorite things, so if this is not good, I'll be really sad. Mm-hmm. Mm. 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 Yeah, I bet you have corn in Denmark. I bet you can find cornmeal. Oh, it's a little... Okay. It tastes really good. The flavor is excellent. It's very soft, very tender, very fluffy. It's a bit dry compared to the southern cornbreads, which are often very, very wet. It's not like it's dry, but it's got a bit of a crumble to it. The honey butter is, of course, delicious because it's just honey and butter. We feel like we could have added a... It's much too late now, but I feel like we could have added maybe a dash of vanilla to the honey butter. But I'm wondering if we over-leavened it. It's got a little bit of a harshness on the back of my throat, right at the end, right at the tail end of the bite, which could be a sign of it being over-leavened. It doesn't taste alkaline. It actually tastes perfect. And the texture is excellent too. Light, fluffy, crumbly, little tiny crunchy bits where the corn didn't quite fully... That bite didn't have any of the little harshness on the back of my throat. So maybe it was just because it was the first thing I ate today. Literally the first thing I ate today was this bite of cornbread. I'm going to finish this little slice. This is very good. If you're not familiar, it's not like you could cover it in caramel, but it's not super sweet as is. So it goes well with sweet flavors, but I don't think of it as a dessert item. I think of it as like a pre-meal item. You're gonna be more specific. I've done some weird food. For sure. For Easter, I made if it was a dessert item, I would make it sweeter, and maybe start with caramel sauce. As it is, it kind of straddles the line. For Easter, I made liver and onion flavored peeps, which after I made them, they got mashed into this jar, and they're now just a liver mousse that I've been diligently eating because it's not going to keep, because there was no way to air seal it the way you would normally with a pate, because it was so airy on account of I made a mousse. I'm not sure why that very first bite had a little bit of a alkaline. Maybe I hit one of those lumps I was talking about early on. Maybe I didn't quite get rid of those lumps like I thought I did, and I bit one. Because I did just have a little like harshness, and that harshness comes from the raising agents. Which is why you've got to balance those things out. I have seen Emmy Made. I watch Emmy Made. I'm a big fan. Um, she's an inspiration. I love a lot of what she does. Let's taste this thing. This is my actual brunch because I'm not going to be eating a big pile of this because I'm taking that with me. This is my actual brunch. So we've got a mushroom onion asparagus saute over couscous with a fried egg. A nice runny fried egg with just the way I like it. Actually, I should use a spoon for this. Because couscous is so spoonable. Mm. Oh, hey, Milkwoman, welcome in. You're just in time for the tasting, the end of the tasting. This is the kind of thing I make for myself, like I said when I was making it, the kind of thing I make for myself on a regular basis. It's pretty simple. It's got something savory, something sweet, something salty, something fatty, something spicy. In this case, it's got sesame oil, salt. I used sweet chili sauce, which gives us our sweetness. I used Frank's Red Hot, which gives us our spiciness. Mushrooms. Mushrooms give us our savoriness. And then some vegetables and a starch. And it's most of my meals are some combination of that. I don't make it here on the show because it doesn't take very long, and I would have to make something else to fill time. So I can only do a little like show off like this when I'm making something else that I'm not eating as a primary meal. This is mighty tasty, but that's a basic way to cook well for yourself and get those beautiful flavors at home. Is just get those 5 elements in there. I don't mean douse it in sugar. Often I use molasses because it gives a little bit of sweetness, but it also gives this sort of dark bitter flavor. But something salty, something sweet, something spicy, something savory, and something fatty. And if you add too much fat, you can balance it out by adding acid. And if you add too much acid, you can balance it out by adding fat. Don't go too far, or you'll end up with just a bunch of acidic oil. But those two flavors bounce against each other. Took 2 normal dishes, switched some ingredients over, and made them both weird but good. It sounds like something I have done. It sounds like something I would have done. Off the top of my head, I can't think of it. But yeah, I actually, thinking about it today, I forgot to post the pictures of the banh mi from Tuesday. I made my own baguette on Tuesday, and I made banh mi out of the baguette. We actually have. I ended up not eating all of the baguettes, so we actually have one here that I used as a prop earlier. It's hard. It's fully hardened over at this point because it's been 5 days. We ate the other 3 when they were still good. This one's still too hard, so this one's going to turn into some kind of use up stale bread recipe, like a pudding or something. Of which there are a million such recipes, because stale bread used to be an extremely, extremely common thing before the era of bread conditioners. Croutons. Croutons is one of the things. So yeah, this is nothing terribly special, but it was easy and quick, and I basically showed you how I eat when I'm not making show food. because you can't make big spectacle food for every meal. It gets old and expensive. Um, we're gonna wrap up because as I've said multiple times, I keep repeating myself today. I'm off to a soiree that's already in progress. They started late morning, and it is currently late morning. Um, a soiree to which I'm bringing this cornbread and this honey butter as a party treat. So let's raid out to let's. Well, there's not a lot of people on right now for on my list. Um, I'm going to share the love since I've got a bit of a crowd from Violet's raid. We're going to go and share the love over with Scarred Vulcan, who's playing RimWorld. I will be back on Tuesday. Let me get my actual camera up. I will be back on Tuesday with more cooking something. The weather is turning crappy again, so something warm and comforting would be great. Thanks to Violet for the raid. Thanks to the new follows who came from Violet's raid. Thanks to everyone for hanging out. Thanks to I don't have another person to thank. I just kept thanking, and I ran out of things to thank. Um, thanks to you for being here. Thank you. It's always a good time. I have fun doing this. I hope you have fun watching it. Um, I always talk about I have grand plans for the channel, and then I always kind of don't seem to follow through. So slap me and make me follow through. I will be back. I already said I'll be back. Back on Tuesday. Stay tuned. Watch that countdown go.